Well, Nicole and Jamie, thank you for letting me come here to talk about tiny homes ADUs. And if you don't know what ADU is, it is
an accessory dwelling unit.
And what's interesting about that right now is since 2016, the city of St. Paul and Minneapolis are allowing ADUs on city properties. So we shifted a couple of feet over. This is a demonstration of what the panels look like partially assembled. Nicole, now we're inside the tiny home.
The most important space.
Yes, of course. This is where we live. So tell us, how do you plan a tiny kitchen?
Oh, gosh.
And an energy efficient kitchen?
And still get what you want, right?
That's and have it look gorgeous.
And have it look gorgeous. That's the goal. So when we put together the design for this unit, we really thought about all ages being in these.
Okay.
It's not just elderly, not just handicapped, but young people, even people with children possibly. So a couple of different design concepts that we took into consideration was how we laid out the kitchen, right?
Yes.
And so we knew it also needed to be a part of the entertainment space.
Mary Jo, back again. This week we have a lot to say. This is Mary Jo at MJTV. We're not HDTV. We tell it like it is, and there's a lot of reality that we want to talk about today. We're going to talk about the shift 2021. It's not 2008, and it's a whole different world. We're going to talk about what it is, what's changed, and how it affects you. But before we do that, I'd love to invite you right below to sign up so you can see what's coming next. We'll do builders interviews. We'll have some manufacturer interviews. So you'll want to stay tuned to find out what's coming next. So let's get into it. We really have a lot to talk about. The shift of 2021. What is it? What's changed? And what does it mean to you? Well, the world was turned upside down in 2020 due to COVID, climate change, and political unrest. And the one thing that we all have in common is we all share this one Earth. Mother Earth has no borderlines. She doesn't know the difference between one country and another. It's just all the same. And we're all in this together. So what's changed? A lot. Health and healthcare are in the front seat driving this bus. The pandemic changed how we live, how we work, how we educate and entertain ourselves. And our priorities changed a lot. Renters came out in flocks, desperate to escape the confines of apartment living. Working from home, needing a home office, childcare, backyard, and creature comforts led thousands to the suburbs. To cope, people turned to their backyards, to the patios, to gardening, and eating healthier. Since restaurants pivoted to takeout and not a lot of options, home cooking became more centered. And remodeling kitchens, DIY projects had a major boom. Home was the new sanctuary. The honey-do list that nobody had time for before, we all had time for. And Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, they all saw the benefits of that. As the months rolled by, it became obvious that the pandemic wasn't leaving soon. So bathroom design, bedroom retreats, kitchen makeovers, home entertainment centers, home gyms also added to the boom of comforts and do-it-yourself or installations. So then we go to interest rates that were plummeting to the lowest point in history, I've seen loans that closed at 2.6%. Owning became more affordable and even more desirable. Demand for homes has risen unprecedented number than recent years, but 2021 is really exceptional. Existing homeowners also flocked to lenders to refinance. If they had even a 4% interest rate, they save money if they're going to stay in the house for a long time. So lenders were overwhelmed with refinance on top of the buyer demand. So since the banks aren't making the kind of money they made with 5.76% interest, they've tightened the rules and regulations. So right now, it's not you, it's them, but they have tightened the rules to equivalent of a financial colonoscopy. They don't want late payments. They won't consider any collections. Credit scores need to be higher. Reserves need to be higher. They're just not making risky loans. You have to be an A buyer in this market. Then there's a new ceiling on pricing, and waiting will cost you more. This pricing isn't going to go away. We thought it would be for a few months and then drop back down. It's not. It's in place now. Climate change is also a constant very few people are denying anymore. The Sahara Desert, we know now, has gone through 4 evolutions of being a massive lake, a desert, a lake, back and forth 4 times over a 40,000 year period, hosting at least 4 different cultures. There have been fossils that are found in China that were tropical. We're seeing the whole Sinai Peninsula was referred to lush and verdant in biblical times. It's desert now. But there is a plan in accordance with Egypt to regreen the Sinai. There's another Dutch, I don't know what his title was, but he proved that in southern Spain, the whole coastline was overdeveloped, so it became almost desert. But those winds bypassed then southern Spain because there was nothing to hold on to. The winds pulled all the moisture over to Germany, causing flooding. If that doesn't convince you that we're one world, nothing does. So what I do in Minnesota, what the Chinese do, or what they do in southern Spain affects the whole world and wins. So dust storms from Africa carry seeds to Brazil. And the Chinese have already regreened some barren areas. So we're seeing not only natural change, but we're seeing man-made change too. Then we get into politics. The past couple of years have been very much like 1968. I was there. I remember where the baby boomers go in all of this. The one thing that we need to understand too is, again, we all need to work together. We need reforms. We need permanent reforms, and for all people working together. Well, next, working from home isn't going away. I can't tell you the number of people who told me, I can't believe how much time I wasted getting dressed, commuting, and the pointless meetings that we used to have. I don't want to do it again. So the good news is unemployment is about 4% in Minnesota right now, down from 4.2 in April. That's a jump. So anybody who wants a job basically can find a job. Some are eager to go back to the office, and a lot are not. It's estimated that maybe 40% of all employees are either thinking of changing jobs or starting a business. So there is a surge in new home-based businesses. And remember, Bill Gates started Microsoft from his garage, as did a whole host of other tech companies. Some businesses like Airbnb don't even have an office. They're entirely remote. They've always been remote. Restaurants, medical services, airlines, they need to show up for the job. But the new model for most businesses is to be downsizing office space with a large percent of remote workers and way fewer meetings. Zoom is here to stay. Zoom meetings are here to stay. If you intend to work remotely, there we are. That's the only way we have to communicate. Some are asking people to come in 1 or 2 days a week where they can have meetings. And honestly, brainstorming in person is a whole different energy than on Zoom. But working from home is here to stay. Right now, we have a shortage of homes to sell. So the numbers are that we have about the same number of homes on the market, but they're being scooped up because the demand is so weak. And most new listings are selling within a week. We all know that multiple offers are the norm, and that's not new. That's been going on for 4 years, I believe. And it's going to continue. What's different now is that the demand is at a fever pitch, and it outweighs normal statistics. Realtor.com estimates we need another 7 million homes to normalize this market, to feed the demand. Homes that are well prepared and well priced usually sell in multiple offers in a very short time. So here's the news. Hedge funds are back. I don't know if you've heard of Blackstone, but Blackstone was a hedge fund that bought 1,200 homes in 1 year as we were coming out of the recession, 2011 to 12. Well, they're buying Home Partners of America, which is another financial institution, which has a designed program to work with renters with lower than stellar credit, buy a home for them and rent it back. Of course, they're making good money. Blackstone seems to like this model, and they're buying them up for $6 billion. So what does that tell you? If hedge funds are buying high when they used to buy low, they have a lot of confidence that this market is going to continue in the same stream. They used to buy low, now they're buying high, and they're betting on the long run. They're buying in mass, and they believe that we have reached a new level of pricing. They're counting on long-term appreciation. And so far this year, amazingly, between 2021 and 2020, we're seeing appreciation anywhere between 8 and 28%, depending on the area. That's outstanding. So it feels like we're on the brink, and people keep saying that, but we keep going in the same direction. For the investors who are perched and ready to jump on that wave of foreclosures, it's not coming. Banks don't want to foreclose. It is a long process, and they always lose money, and they don't have trained staff to handle it again. Only 35% of those who were in forbearance are still in forbearance. That means the other 65 are out. The difference is with these people who are in forbearance, they're not going to foreclosure. They have enough equity to sell, pay off their debt, and walk away with cash in their pocket. So the bottom line is that if you're holding out for foreclosures, you're going to be waiting a long time. Yes, there are going to be a few foreclosures. We have less than 1% now. And of the 35%, they can sell. They can sell at a better rate. We're seeing homes in all kinds of condition, unlike a few years ago when we were very millennial oriented. They expected it all to look like HGTV. They don't care anymore. They just want a house that they can fix up. So it's changed. It's no longer the norm for buyers that have down payment assistance to ask for closing costs. One time a lender called me up, this was a few years ago, and he said, oh, great news. We can now ask sellers for up to 6% in closing costs. And I went, have you talked to an appraiser? That's going to throw you out of the park. That's crazy. Sellers don't want to pay 3% now, and they're certainly not going to pay 6%, and the house isn't going to appraise. We're all aware that buying a home in 2021 is a really competitive process. Buyers need to know that not only are they competing against other buyers like themselves, but they're competing against the hedge funds. And the hedge funds are coming in with cash. So what do buyers really need to know now that we are in this new field? And we are in a new field. Expect competition. I've had buyers that chase every new listing that comes to market, and it is exhausting. And everybody else is chasing that new listing. So let's say they have a slew of buyers and you're one of 18 offers. I think it's smart to watch for the homes that don't sell that quickly. Back in January, and we hadn't quite started, there was a lull. Between the election date and January 1st, there was a lull. So I had somebody call me up on New Year's Day and say, I want to see houses. So I found 2 houses for her that had been on the market. One was under construction, reconstruction. It was totally rehabbed, and the other was a normal house. So it happened that I know the builder on the rehab house, and I said, he's a good builder. Wasn't finished, needed the floors, it needed some touches. She said, okay. She was a first-time buyer. She took a risk. The house was priced at $380,000. It turned out beautifully. She was happy. We were the only one in the room, the only offer that they had. Had he put it on 2 months later, I know he could have gotten $420,000 for that listing. So not every house sells in multiple offers. Look for the homes that have time on the market. And if you're the only one who shows up, guess what? You have an advantage. Number 2, sellers are not willing to pay closing costs. If they have 4 to 18 offers on the table, what are they going to look for? The agent is going to go through and she is going to look for the strongest offer. They're not going to pay closing costs. Normally that's about 3%. 3% of a loan. So if you're buying a $300,000 house at 3%, that's $9,000. On the other hand, there are some credit unions that will offer a flat fee for closing costs, like Wings Financial offers $950 flat fee. So $9,000 versus $950, who gains on that? That's a big difference, and it's to your advantage to seek out different options. There are other banks that charge 2%, so there are ways to handle it. You can't roll it into the loan if you don't have the seller agreement on that in the price. Number two, you need a reliable lender. I even had one agent, she wouldn't work with an online or out of state lender. The buyers came in from Chicago. They had a Chicago lender. She said, and they were licensed across the country. She said, no, I want them to use someone local. They switched. They found somebody local. We still didn't get the offer. But you want somebody who's known in the market. I have had offers accepted on the strength of the offer, but also that the lender called the listing agent, told them that the buyer was solid, and that the lender was recognized as a real lender, not a shim-sham lender in this market. Number four, conventional and cash rule the day. So sellers prefer cash for a couple of reasons. Yeah, they get the same amount of money, but there's no appraisal. There's nothing can go wrong with a loan and ultimate delays. I have a loan now. It's a total nightmare. It went from FHA to conventional. We've had 3 extensions on closing. My seller's fed up if we don't close, and there's no reason why. This is the lender that's screwed up on this one. So with cash, closings can be within a few days as soon as they have clear title. That's usually a few days or under a week. So for those reasons, they prefer cash. Number 2, conventional comes in at second place. Conventional is more forgiving for condition. FHA and VA are less forgiving and their appraisals are tighter. So VA loans is one of the best loans out there, but the appraisal is tight like FHA. FHA has been a lot more flexible lately, but things like peeling paint or crack, anything you can be hazardous, they will call. And the less work for sellers, the happier they are. Number 5, be prepared to offer substantially more than the list price. I remember back in the recession where prices were maybe half of what they were before in the market. And every single buyer said, oh, how low will they go? And I went, the list price is already about half. So, okay, I want to offer 30 less. Okay, so we've got 4 offers on the table and you want to offer 30 less. Yeah, well, of course, they didn't get it. Now the opposite is happening. How much will they take? How much will win? So I've written offers 25 over asking and they don't get it. So it depends how many offers are on the table. We don't know. The agent can say we are in multiple offers. I have 4 or I have 18 offers, but that doesn't mean anything. You don't know who your competition is. Maybe 10% over list price will do it. So we just don't know. I made an offer on a $399 listing at $415. We didn't get it. The competing offer was over ours. They were putting so much down, the appraisal didn't matter. And for the inspection, it was information only. So let's talk about inspections. Number 6, many buyers are forgoing inspections. This is something I can never, ever recommend. It's a lawsuit happening. The buyer will sometimes even not have an inspection, or they will say it's for information only. I would at least expect for information only. The truth in housing inspections are usually just code, and otherwise you're counting on the seller's word on the disclosure. Well, the seller's not an inspector, and what if they don't disclose something that's really important or costly? Also, some of those, they just don't cover a lot of items. They don't tell you how old the furnace is. They don't tell you that the washing machine maybe is kind of working, or they don't say what the utility bills are. But buyers are choosing for inspection only. That means that their offer is basically it is non-contingent on that. So if the seller sets the price, they have an inspection and they find problems, that's their problem. They're going to pick up the price on that. Some buyers, number 7, are waiving appraisals. They're not actually waiving the appraisal. What they are saying is that if the appraisal comes in short, they will pay the difference. We don't know how much that is. So in one case, this was 2 years ago, I was working with a buyer on a property that was 250, and the other buyer came in 20,000 higher than our offer. We were over that. So the agent calls up and says, can your girl come up 20,000 and waive appraisal? No, she didn't have the reserves. I said, how much money are we talking about? She goes, I don't know. And I said, I don't know what the offer is. I don't, how can you expect 30,000 over 250 not to have some issues with appraisal? She said, yeah, so does my buyer have another $30,000 that she can throw at it? No. So when will a bank allow waiving appraisals? When you have at least 20% down. In some areas, it's really common. Right now in Austin, Texas, where they have a wave of tech people coming in from California and New York, they're waiving appraisals. It's not mandatory, but it is customary. And that means that the bank will require an appraisal. But if the appraisal comes in short, the buyer is paying the difference between what the appraisal says and your list price. We don't know what that number is. It can be anywhere from $1 to maybe $40,000, $50,000. We don't know. So before you commit to that, know what you're getting into. But you can't even do it unless you're putting down 20%. I did have 2 banks do that voluntarily without even telling us. They just said, I said, when's the appraisal? They go, oh, there is none. We're doing a desktop appraisal, which means that they just run numbers desktop and say it's okay. So that happened on 2 banks. That can happen. Unless you have 20% down, it's not even a possibility. And sellers aren't so concerned about that. Usually they do want to know. And I did have one time a buyer have to pay $9,000 out of pocket above because the appraisal did come in short. The other thing is, think outside the box. Think about new construction. Existing homes are one thing, new construction is another. And there are a lot of different price ranges in new construction. I routinely get information from builders. We have this list of homes that are quick move-in, or this house is going to be available at the end of June. This house will be available in August. So this has been a boom year for builders, but they face a whole slew of challenges as well. Price of wood went up 3%. So unless they pre-ordered in the spring before we had this problem, and the problem is COVID because some of the yards closed down and they weren't shipping wood, there was a shortage, so that makes the price go up. That will come down a bit. But think about new construction. You can find townhomes, you can find single families, or you can find single family detached with associations. There are various parts of the city. So what are the advantages? Well, here I could go on for another 20 minutes, but first of all, there's very low maintenance over time. And be prepared to wait, because one of the challenges of builders is the shortage of materials and like appliance shortages. We had to wait 3 months for a refrigerator, not because there was anything wrong. It's just there was a shortage and we had to wait for it to come in. So sometimes there's a shortage of crew. I know one project was held up because they couldn't get mudding tape for sheetrock. So be patient. We have to plan for all possibilities there. And there are really lots of reasons. When you get new, again, you just have very low maintenance. But once you see it and the technology in new homes, the higher energy efficiency, you'll change your mind, or you'll be open to new construction. So also, if you don't want to go for new construction, if you're budget constricted, think about ADUs or tiny homes. ADUs are additional dwelling units on an existing house lot. So the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul in 2016 revised the law so that they will allow ADU or tiny homes. You do have to get permits and there are restrictions on it. So the tiny homes I'm seeing are anywhere from 500 to 1,200 square feet somewhere on the lot. Obviously, suburban lots are usually bigger, and the city would prefer smaller. Why is the city like this? Both cities are aiming for higher density and higher taxes, so it's added value, and will get value. There will be a tax change. But if you have an aging parent, an aging in-law, or an adult son who doesn't want to leave home, that might be a good alternative. Some of the new tiny homes, and I'm not talking about vans, real tiny homes are high performance, and they're real houses. They have all the utilities. They are self-sufficient, standing alone, augmented space. So it can be a really good idea. Empty nesters and millennials are both loving tiny homes. They love it because they don't see the need for so much stuff. And a lot of people are downsizing into smaller homes. So think about it. If you need more information, I have it. Number 9, 40% of homes were sold last year sight unseen. Oh my gosh. Okay, a lot were in California, not here so much. Midwesterners are more skeptical. Wow, I can't recommend that. So with new construction, it's not so risky because 80% of the property is standardized and 20% is customized, depending on the home, unless it's custom and you're in and out of that anyway, so it's not sight unseen. But if it's an older home and you'll have limited photos online, very few homes show every corner of the basement, especially if it's an old basement. They show what's pretty. They show what's best on it. So I'm very, very wary of sight unseen. I have sold sight unseen to investors that I know, and I know what they're looking for, and I send them photos in excess of what they see online. But actually buying sight unseen is really scary. So what the investors did, and some people are doing, which is smart, especially if they're local, as they can buy sight unseen, but have an inspection, show up for the inspection, and actually see it in person. This is how I worked with investors before. For first-time buyers, you don't know what you're looking at anyway. You want an agent with you to walk the property, to point things out. We're not inspectors, but we do have a grip because I see a lot of property, but in no way, shape, or form am I an inspector. So it's always good to have an inspection, and you've got to walk the home, especially an older home. From the photos that you see on MLS or even on Zillow, you see the house. You don't see the neighbors. You don't see all of the backyard. You don't see the neighborhood. And what if there is an electric tower right in the back, or you're next to a gas station, but the photos cut it out? And sometimes when they use a wide angle lens, the front yard looks massive and you get there, it is a teeny tiny thing. I've had that happen, and buyers get pissed because it is misrepresenting. And I agree it is. So it's good to see it in person, even if it's inconvenient. And if you're out of town, send somebody, boots on the ground. You have mom, dad, sister, cousin, a good friend who will give you a real opinion of what they're looking at. An extra pair of eyes never hurts. So here we are, post-COVID, looking at homes, and sometimes the showings were restricted to 15 minutes. And I mean, wow, who can see a house in 15 minutes? If it's a house you like, you need more. So you can book back to back for 30 minutes, but it's really hard to make up your mind in 30 minutes if you love this house or not. So if you can, if there's time, book a second showing, see it a second time, bring someone else along. They have different eyes than you do. 30% of people who bought sight unseen had regrets that they didn't take more time. And I can imagine, how can you make up your mind that fast? Do you know what you're really looking at? Do you see the condition? Do you know it's in the basement? How old is the furnace? Walk the neighborhood, drive the neighborhood, see if the neighbors have cars on blocks, or if it's a nice, quiet, the kind of neighborhood that makes you happy. So even if you have an accepted offer and you find things that are repairs, not all sellers want to do that. Be aware that your offer is still contingent. That's why it's called an inspection contingency. That offer is not finalized until that contingency is removed. Be aware that the seller can bypass you and go to another offer who isn't requiring you to make repairs. So don't come up with an entire laundry list of things. They will absolutely go to another offer when you do that. So in some cases, you have to be prepared to make an offer on top of going over list price. We have a changing economy. Obviously, across the country, the office spaces are down, mall spaces are changing, retail is coming back, but there are vacant malls. Across the country, I think it's about 26% vacancy downtown. In Minneapolis, or occupancy. Minneapolis is 16% occupancy downtown. All of those buildings are vacant. So what are we going to do with them? We're beginning to look at repurposing malls, office building, hotels, old hotels. Those are the easiest because they have plumbing all in place. Plumbing and older buildings, wow, that's a big expense and it's a little shaky. So there's a lot coming. And one thing we haven't talked about is technology. None of this would be possible without the technology we have today. New homes have amazing technology and amazing performance, even if they're kind of mediocre. So older homes don't always have that technology, but they can be retrofitted. So the kind of furnaces, windows, they're very different than they were a few years ago. And we're seeing homes being retrofitted now. And the technology in it is truly amazing. I get up every day and go, wow, I'm so glad that I live at this time. There is really a lot to know if you're buying or selling a house across the country right now. The changes that have been made are here. We're living with them. Not everybody's going back to work. They're going to continue. We're going to have more businesses. We're going to have repurposing of commercial properties into residential properties. So be open, look at it. People come to me and they say, here's what I want. How do you know? It's not your job to know what's on the market. It's my job. So you can tell me what you want. And I say, are you open? Think like a tourist. When we go see properties, think like a tourist. Well, let's not chase every new listing that comes out there. It's exhausting and it's futile. Let's look for something different. So that's my wrap for today. I'm sure you'll have questions. You'll have concerns. You can always call me, text me, email me. Love to chat with you about it. So the shift 2021, it's already happened. Here we are. And I hope to see you next week. So have a great weekend. Call us questions. Don't forget to sign up to stay tuned. And I'll see you next week. Thanks. Thanks.